Hey everyone, my name is Mrs. Richards and I am the science teacher over at Cloud Elementary. And today I'm here to talk to you about a wonderful thing that we see on our earth all the time called the water cycle. Now, if you think about a bicycle and the wheel goes around and around as you pedal the bicycle, the water cycle is a lot like that. It keeps going around in a circle, and when it gets back to the beginning, it starts all over again. So we're going to be looking at that today and seeing what the water cycle process is. So to get started with the water cycle, you have to have some type of water source. Out in nature, we see these as rivers, as lakes, or even ponds or puddles after it rains outside. We even see water on our bodies if we get hot and we sweat some. So we see water all over the place. To get started on our activity today, you're going to need a baggie. Any size of baggie will work. You're going to need some food coloring if you have it. You're going to need some water and some tape. And another important thing is a Sharpie marker. So we already talked about the water. So on the bottom of our baggie, we're going to draw our water and we're going to label that water, because remember, we have to have water as the beginning of our water cycle. Now, after we have water, we have the sun that is outside, and the sun heats up that water. And when the sun heats up that water, it creates something called evaporation. It makes that water start to disappear. And so evaporation is when the sun heats up the water in those rivers and those lakes and those oceans, and that water turns into water vapor or steam. So the next thing we're going to do on our baggie is we are going to write the word evaporation about the middle of our baggie on the side. And we're going to draw an arrow from water up to evaporation so that we know that the water is evaporating. Now, we don't get to see evaporation happening. It just happens, but it's invisible to us. After the process of evaporation happens, that water goes up into the sky and it begins to condense. Our next word is condensation. Condensation happens when the water vapor starts to cool down and it gets colder. And so it starts turning back into water that we're able to see. What happens is that condensation creates the clouds in the sky. So our next step in our experiment is we are going to draw a cloud, and I'm going to use the white part of my bag because it kind of looks like a cloud. And we're going to write condensation inside of our cloud. And I'm going to draw an arrow from evaporation, because that's what happens before condensation, over to condensation. Now, after condensation happens, what happens is those water droplets start getting bigger and bigger. And as they grow bigger and bigger, they get heavier and heavier. And so what ends up happening is those clouds can't hold on to that water anymore. And that's when we see precipitation. Precipitation, again, is when those clouds get really heavy and they can't hold that water any longer. So it falls in the form of rain, in the form of snow, or sleet, or hail. It kind of depends on what the temperature is outside. So our next step is we are going to write precipitation on the other side of our baggie. And we're going to draw an arrow from condensation to precipitation. And then we're going to draw some little raindrops that remind us that precipitation happens in the form of liquid that we can see coming from the sky. After precipitation, guess what? It all comes back down to the water source. Now, some of it goes back into the water source that it came from, like the river or the lake, but some of it just goes down into the ground and it helps feed our plants, and some of it even goes into where humans and animals can drink it. So if you see now, we have created the water cycle. We have our water source, we have evaporation that happens up to condensation where it forms back together and falls in the form of precipitation. Now, to see this actually happening, now that we've drawn on our baggie, we're going to open up our baggie. We're going to pour some water in there. Now, remember I said the hotter the water, the quicker that evaporation is going to happen. So I have heated up my water. If you're heating it up, you need to get some help from an adult that will help you do that. I'm just going to pour a little bit of this water into the bottom of my baggie. Then I'm going to add just a couple drops of food coloring that will help us see it a little bit better. Kind of mix it up a little bit. And I'm going to leave some air in our baggie. And I'm going to zip my baggie closed so that the water can't get out. And then you will start seeing the condensation happening on the outside of your bag. Now, what you can do with this is you can grab some tape and you can take your baggie and you can tape it into a window at your house that gets some sun, and you can keep seeing this happen. Get permission to do that before you do that. But you can eventually, you'll start seeing that condensation on the bag, and then you will see it start raining back down into the bottom part of your bag. So that is the water cycle. Now, I want you to think about some other ways that you could create the water cycle and observe the water cycle at your house. For example, I grabbed some containers from my kitchen and I put my water in the bottom of the big container. I put a small container in the middle with a rock and I covered it with plastic wrap, and I can see the water cycle happening right here. So I want you to do some research and some looking around. What are some ways that you can observe the water cycle in action? Have fun and keep learning, and I'll see you later.